team.
For a long time now, Sonic Adventure has gotten a pretty bad rap. Upon its initial release here in the States back in September of 1999, it was met rather favorably as a killer app for the Sega Dreamcast console. This Orca scene in Emerald Coast is pretty much synonymous with both the game and the console itself. This section is simply iconic. As time has passed, the game was remade, and with shoddy ports of that remake being available to newer swaths of video game players, the game's reputation has since sunk. And I get it. It's a weird game. A relic of when Sonic Team had to push the envelope to try and sell physical hardware and to try their hand at a few different gaming concepts to try to attract new players with things like fishing. These days, when Sonic Adventure is dismissed, fishing among other things are brought up as points against it. The fishing is slow, Big the Cat's story is a waste of time, you can fall through the floors, the voice acting is near consistently awful, and Sonic hanging out in the real world with realistic humans seems to be considered an affront to humanity ever since Sonic 06. Despite all of this, however, I still maintain a love for Sonic Adventure and still think it's a good game. So much time has been spent talking about how this game has aged in recent years. So to celebrate its 20th anniversary stateside, I'd like to put some energy out into the world and garner at least a bit more positivity by discussing what still inspires me about the game and how it's affected my life personally. This video isn't intended as a narrative essay to shift your opinion or to tell you that you're wrong for not liking the game. It is purely for me to talk about why I love the game and what it means to me. If you're unfamiliar, Sonic Adventure is the first proper 3D Sonic entry in the long-running series, featuring 6 playable characters with their own unique gameplay stylings and objectives. Sonic himself just has to navigate environmental obstacle courses littered with springs and slopes, Tails has to race another character to the end of shorter stages, Knuckles hones in on one chunk of a stage to hunt for MacGuffins, Amy must do her best to stay 2 steps ahead of a robot trying to abduct her, E102 Gamma must fight a series of mini-bosses at the end of stages to free the animals within them, and as established earlier, Big the Cat fishes for a frog with a tail. The tail is plot relevant, and it's this plot that gets thrown back against Sonic Adventure at times. We're at a weird point in time now where die-hard classic Sonic fans view this game as a shift away from the simpler narratives of the original games, and New Age fans have had much different interpretations of these characters as their introduction to the series. This leaves Sonic Adventure in a weird position as the years have passed. I can't sit here and tell you that this story is a highlight of the Sonic franchise, but what I will say is that the themes touched on and the potential of the story still strike a chord with me to this day. So like I said, when you put this game's story on paper, it's rather underwhelming. Sonic and Tails effectively stumble for almost half of the game, making zero forward progress and are practically just helping Eggman achieve his goal of powering Chaos with the Chaos Emeralds. With their plot thread being the most important one in the game, it is kind of frustrating that every small victory seems to be undercut just a few minutes later for the first large stretch of the game. In addition, Sonic Team's experience with effective storytelling doesn't do any of this many favors, but to be fair, there weren't many development teams doing much better during this time either. Bluntly put, calling the story weak as it is presented is a rather fair assessment. But for me, I look at the implications, the character moments, and the stronger moments, and can't help but be fond of it regardless. For example, Tails' path in this game starts off to just be accompanying Sonic, the thing he was literally created to do, but Sonic Adventure pushes this idea to its next logical step, the sidekick recognizing their codependency and growing beyond idealizing the one they look up to. Tails' story in this game is short, but still ultimately has impact. We're given a teasing glimpse at the first time Tails and Sonic met, all shown without words to the player so that they can imagine whatever they want to be said between them. This is the one time in the game where the constant failure Sonic and Tails are met with is rebounded somewhat properly with a profound character revelation. Having lost a majority of the emeralds to Eggman, Sonic's current location being unknown, and Tails having a plane he was piloting shot down, he picks himself back up and gains the determination he needs to own his independency and ultimately save Station Square from Eggman by himself. This is character growth that the series has since literally walked back to the opposite direction. Sonic Adventure was my introduction to the series. It shaped my entire perception of who these characters are and what they stand for. To me, Tails is always going to be the kid who picked himself up off of his feet and overcame his fear to prove he can stand equal with the one he respects the most. This being my foundation for how I expect Tails to behave makes me sad every time I think of the treatment he's received in the years since. And there's no way to mention Sonic Adventure's plot without bringing up Gamma, who seemingly by a fluke gets one of the most emotional stories in the entire series. Playing Amy's story first gives you context for the Flickies, and in my opinion gives you the better interpretation of the scene where Amy reaches through to Gamma's emotional core by offering her friendship. This moment plants the seeds for Gamma to go through an admittedly typical robot rebelling against its creator story, but like the game proper, the sum of the parts are ultimately what counts here. Now, Sonic Adventure doesn't convey a lot of subtlety through its animation, but this scene here always stands out to me. After freeing the animals from some of his robotic brethren, Gamma takes stock of his remaining tasks. His memory shows him his brother, Beta, and then he looks at his own hand and says his name, knowing he has to ultimately destroy himself to free the Flicky trapped within him. This is one of the few scenes in the game to not have music blasting over it, and it just comes together so well. In the end, Beta and Gamma trade blows and both erupt in over-the-top explosions, and the birds within them turn out to be family and can reunite. The absolute capstone to the scene is the music, however, being a very emotional arrangement of Gamma's main theme. Even with the very obviously synth instruments, this just comes together beautifully, and to this day, honestly, still makes me emotional every time I play it. I haven't played a game since that captures this kind of almost accidental magic. The ending of the game works on a similar level for me, but I've rambled enough about the story and want to get to the game proper. Sonic Adventure is still my favorite game in the series to play, and yes, most of that is due to nostalgia, knowing every nook and cranny of these levels, and knowing how to deal with the game's wanderlust camera. But to me, I still haven't played a 3D Sonic title where I feel as comfortable controlling the characters, particularly in the case of Sonic himself. Sonic's controls at top speed suck. I can't get around that. It's hard not to feel like you're walking on eggshells after you hit a speed booster and are praying you won't go careening off the edge or something. But everything else cements SA1 for me as my favorite feeling Sonic. I think his speed windup feels great, I can always jump exactly where I want to, curling into a ball and rolling around controls so precisely, and frankly, using Sonic's spin dash jump technique to find hidden items or ridiculously good shortcuts just feels amazing, even 20 years later. No other Sonic game gives me this sensation. I was so sad as a kid when I got Sonic Adventure 2, and the spin dash jump was nerfed. Sonic can't fly like Tails or glide like Knuckles, so this trade-off always felt natural to me. The notion that Sonic can pinpoint somewhere he wants to go, charge up a spin dash, then use the momentum to shoot himself like a pinball launcher could, just completely makes sense to me, especially in a game where you literally use Sonic to play pinball. I've seen some argue that they never implemented this mechanic again due to it not being really intentional, but I'd counter that and point out how many hidden item boxes there are that are easily accessible with this technique. To me, it felt like part of the design. And alongside SA1 stages that offer little areas to explore like Red Mountain and Speed Highway, it just all adds up to something that never stops being exhilarating for me. I love some of the hidden intricacies to Sonic's playstyle too. I'm not sure how many people know this, but if you hold the action button when you homing attack into a spring, you get way more airtime than you would otherwise. It lets you completely skip a few select sections, like this island in Windy Valley or this little ditty in Twinkle Park. Heck, this actually works in Sonic Adventure 2 also. It's great for Radical Highway. Not every level is a winner, I'll admit, and honestly I dread parts of this game every time I play through it that make you sit around and wait, like Sky Chase or Chaos Force Fight, but when Sonic's story levels are good, they're damn good. I still dream of getting another Sonic game that controls like this, and I know there aren't many that will agree with me on that, but at least I'm 100% admitting it's due to nostalgia. Tails' stages are my favorite to speedrun because you could pretty much break the game with Tails' flying. I still remember the first time I beat Windy Valley without touching the ground once as a kid. I felt so accomplished. Barring Skydeck, I find Knuckles stages to be pretty fun too. It can't be overstated that being able to track all 3 Emerald Shards at once is just more convenient, and these levels are all just the right size that it doesn't take too much grifting to complete the stage. Skydeck feels janky to play thanks to the weird gravity stuff going on, but other than that, I always have fun with Knuckles. Amy gets a bad rap from some people, but nowadays I actually enjoy her stages because it feels like a challenge to keep her going at top speed and consistently use her hammer jump. Knowing Zero's AI and where he spawns helps a lot, though. As a kid, this thing terrified me, and is probably at least partly responsible for the immense anxiety I suffer from as an adult. I mean, Jesus. This culminates in one of the game's best boss fights too. Seriously, I wish Zero had more hit points, because this is without a doubt more fun than most of the Chaos fights. It also just feels good to get some payback on this bucket of bolts. Big's fishing stages are harmless once you've learned where Froggy is and can just beeline to him. I mean, you complete 10% of Big's story just by watching his first cutscene. Shit. And then there's Gamma, whose stages I've always found very fun because they embrace an arcade-style approach to gameplay and let you do so as a cool robot with a gun. It didn't take much to impress me as a kid, but this touches on my favorite overall thing about Sonic Adventure's gameplay. See, even from its inception, Sonic embraced arcade-esque game design with points, timers, and encouraging the player to keep coming back to learn the game and do it better. Sega made arcade hit after arcade hit, and most of their best and most memorable games from this time all embraced Sega's arcade mastery and found ways to incorporate either the ideology or even just their style smartly into their design. Nights into Dreams, an earlier Sonic Team title, also openly embraced an arcade-like design and is a great game because of it in my eyes. Sure, the score in Sonic Adventure never matters, and the time really only matters in Gamma stages and in certain missions for more emblems, but as a kid, I wanted to do better just because they surfaced the time and points to me. It just feels invigorating. No other game has ever given me this specific thrill. Trying to zip through a stage as fast as I can gives me a rush every time I play Sonic Adventure, and I think generally the game's hub worlds do a good job at balancing that frenetic energy with the opportunity to take it easy for a bit. These hub worlds are kind of a contentious aspect of not only this game, but of the series in general. All you have to do is even mention them to some Sonic fans, and they'll gladly tell you that these hub worlds are against the notion of what Sonic gameplay is and should be about. And I agree, dependent on the narrative the game is trying to tell. For a game like Sonic Adventure, however, I'd rather have an attempt at a hub world than a usual level-to-level structure. Station Square and the Mystic Ruins in particular work for me in this game, at least as far as the intent of them goes. The Egg Carrier is fun to explore because, hey, it's a peek inside Eggman's mind and his, tastes. But talking to people in the other areas helps set an emotional baseline for the game's narrative, despite their basic dialogue and how they clash with Sonic stylistically. Sonic Adventure's plot demands that Station Square be destroyed for its climax to work, but it wouldn't work as well if Station Square was just the place Speed Highway is set in. You need to talk to the citizens, hear them out, and follow their stories for the intent to be more effective. From hearing about this girl waiting on her dad, to this boy's struggles with his mother's gambling addiction, to this guy's fear of frogs, these are little hooks that are meant to help the player understand the city and connect with it. Sure, these hub worlds can be confusing to navigate, and they don't really seem to be designed with any character's abilities in mind, but in my eyes, they're essential to give some breathing room between the stages and as a base for the emotional through line of the climax. As a kid, I loved talking to every single person after every single stage and going in every single room to make sure I hadn't missed a single line of dialogue. I was so hooked. I do wonder how many people talk to these set NPCs in the flashback scenes too. I never see anyone mention them. They're easy to ignore because most of Knuckles' ancestors run around haphazardly, spitting out nonsensical dialogue, but these stationary guys actually give a glimpse of context to the struggle between Tikal and her father. It's great. Most people have probably dropped off by this point in the video, so on that note, I'd like to start going into the real meat of why I love Sonic Adventure. You've probably noticed that my praise for this game, more often than not, has been boiling down to excusing its flaws. I first played Sonic Adventure when I was 5 years old at Christmas. It was my first game, which should probably explain why I'm so forgiving of SA1. Sure, we had an NES with Super Mario Bros. And Legend of Zelda in the house, but those were Dad's games, and I had to basically beg to play them. The Dreamcast, Sonic Adventure were given to me, and I could play them any reasonable time I wanted. I was enraptured by Sonic Adventure. To my young mind, not yet tainted with cynicism, it was an amazing experience. This was a whole other world filled with cool characters that had superpowers, did what was right, and saved people. They had lame catchphrases, cheesy jokes, and got a reaction out of people they talked to. I could explore the beach, heights of a city, a flying high-tech ship, and ancient ruins, all to save the world. I could run, fly, glide, fish, shoot, and, well, run with intent. I'd play Sonic Adventure so much. We didn't even have a memory card for the first week the game was in our home. My parents hadn't bought one from Circuit City for Christmas because, well, the NES didn't need a memory card, so why would the Dreamcast need one? We were snowed in for a few days, and every time I turned the Dreamcast on, I'd have to play through the opening areas again. I think the farthest I ever got was past the first Sky Chase stage. I think this is the reason for me loving two crucial aspects of Sonic: the replayability and the determination to get as far as I can, as fast as I can. Out of sheer necessity, if I wanted to get farther, I had to get faster, and the only way to do that was to learn the levels and learn whatever tricks I could to get ahead. All the while, the dialogue, atmosphere, and music were being burned into my young mind. Speaking of the music, to this day I still think that this is the best Sonic soundtrack put to print, and it certainly shaped my perception of what Sonic music should be. There's plenty of rock mixed in with that great 90s Sonic Team saxophone, but also plenty of tracks that are more reliant on synths, all effective at evoking an emotion in the player. For every upbeat, cool track like Red Mountain, Ice Cap snowboarding music, or Speed Highway, there are more contemplative tracks to counter them like in Lost World or the Egg Carriers music. Sonic Adventure's music makes me feel cool, tense, sad, determined, and sometimes feelings that I find even harder to place. I know these are just basic 90s synths, but combined with all of the elements, some of these tracks just make me feel so weird, in a good way. I find the worlds themselves very interesting too. Surface level, sure, Sonic Adventure uses some pretty generic templates: beach, city, mountain, Eggman level, but there's plenty in the scenery to stop and look at. I mean, I still wonder to this day what the heck these things are and what they're actually accomplishing. Honestly, I bet whoever put this in the game wasn't quite sure either. But it showed me that even in a game that's about getting to the end as quickly as possible, the details along the way are important. Sonic Adventure made me take time to stop and look around, wondering what life is like beyond the confinements of the game's boundaries. To this day, I still daydream about exploring more of Station Square, finding out what these things are in Sand Hill, or even being able to meet the rival tribes of Knuckles' ancestor. What's up with these jailed dudes? Are these silver and gold statues somehow connected to the silver and gold Chao you can find in the hub worlds? I'll probably never care about another game to such a degree in my life, which is a bit odd to think about. There's so many small things I couldn't naturally incorporate into this video either that I still think about. It's given me so much to chew on. But the real foundation for my caring is how Sonic Adventure impacted my life. When most people say a game is their life, it's usually a problem, and well, it's probably a problem for me too. But this game has done a lot for me. I've gotten to do so much cool stuff in my life thanks to playing Sonic Adventure at such a young age. This is where I get to brag for a bit, but it's leading to something. I've been to multiple Sonic-focused events. I've sat in the VIP area of a Sonic party drinking right in front of Sega America's former leaders as Sonic Mania was revealed to the public. I've gotten to meet so many people who played a pivotal part in Sonic Adventure and the series at large, and even got to go to the first concert in America focused on Sonic Adventure's music. It took place in my home state on top of that. It's still one of the best days of my life. I've been even more blessed to have stories with these people that I can't share here. As far as Sonic fans go, I'm pretty fucking lucky, and I never take that for granted, not even for a moment. But none of that stuff means much when compared to the friendships I've made thanks to being a Sonic fan. I've met so many amazing people who have passion and generosity that continues to surprise me more and more as the years go on. I know my best friends thanks to Sonic Adventure. I've had the best times of my life with these people. People that have helped shape my interest, my views, and my heart. I literally would not be talking to you now, or even be a fraction of who I am today without Sonic Adventure. I know it can sound a bit odd, but I have this game to thank. I don't know who I would be without it, and frankly I don't like to ponder it much because I know I'd be a much sadder, less fulfilled individual otherwise. For those of you who have gotten this far in the video, I've finally answered the video title for you. Sonic Adventure literally shaped my life. This is why it's so easy for me to overlook its numerous flaws and look deeper into what it is and what it tried to be. I think we all have something that shaped us, something that marked a clear point of division where things took a turn for the better. I started my online life running some of the largest Chao-centric forums, which stemmed from my love of Sonic Adventure. It's weird to think that 12 years and a month after I first signed up to a Chao message board of all things, that I've been fortunate enough to receive so many good blessings and have all of these experiences. I can't even imagine how the kid playing Sonic Adventure in his living room would react to all of the things I could tell him, how his eyes would light up and not believe what I had to say. All thanks to a game most people rag on. It's a flawed game, continually burning in the fire of an internet that increasingly views things in black or white, amazing or terrible, with little room for the in-between and even less room for how even something that is just good can inspire and impact. But no matter how poorly Sonic Adventure continues to age, no matter how disillusioned I feel with Sonic's recent entries, and no matter where I wind up in life, this game is my rock. I come back to it for comfort, for perspective, and to remind myself of where I've been and who I am. This is why I love Sonic Adventure, and why I always will.